Hi guys, and welcome to another kamicarzCreation video. Back in the shed, back working on the UC Torana, and it runs. It's taken a little bit to get it there. Had some something I've never had before. Had some oil pressure problems, but I've worked it out and got the pressure up to it now. And it seems to be running okay. I'm just running it straight out the strackies at the moment, so she's pretty noisy and got a reasonably lumpy cam in there, but sounds good. Sounds good so far. I've got no radiator on it. It's just been that initial fire up just to get it proved that it was starting before I go any further and whack some more accessories on it. So I'll have a bit of a talk about some of the parts that I've bought in putting it back together and getting it to this stage, and then we'll fire it up and give you a listen. So some of the things I was waiting on, one was these leads, which are really nice. I did go down to a local Repco dealership and tried to buy some leads, but they basically had standard Holden 6-cylinder leads, or they had a Bosch version, which I still think were only about an 8mm lead. So I went and jumped online. I'll try to buy local if I can, and found these Eagles. Now these are a 10.5mm high tension lead, really good spec, really nice looking and nice feeling tension lead, and they work quite fine, good length, and got them in position. The other thing I was waiting on was the grommet, because this is a non-standard rocker cover. I think it's a 32mm hole in the rocker cover, and I needed that grommet, which goes 32mm down to 19 for the positive crankcase pressure valve, PCV valve, that runs into the bottom of the carby there and keeps the crankcase pressure right so I don't start blowing oil out the top of it. Also around here, this was a suggestion by one of my followers. I bought a half-inch packing plate which lifted the butterflies up out of the manifold itself. So once the fuel gets down into that manifold, it's got free flow in any direction. Before I put that plate on, the butterflies are actually opening up into the manifold and had the potential to reduce the flow to individual cylinders because of that case. So just bought that online on eBay. It's a pretty standard part, just said polycarb packer, and it popped up. And so I snaveled that and got the carby mounted on there. So running that 350 Holly, pretty much standard jetting at this stage, and it all probably needs a bit of a tune in, but it's running at this stage. So next phase will be getting that radiator back in there, getting some radiator hoses on, and filling it up so I can give it a bit longer run. At the moment it's just been starting it up to check it's running, and it seems all good. So here's my aluminium radio that I was running before. It's got twin thermo fans on the back of it, so I'm going to give that a clean up and whack it back in. But I was also, if you look back in some of my old videos, I was running this Davis Craig thermostatic fan controller, so you can set your temperature rating to bring those thermos on. Now I'm going to be hooking that back up in the process and running those thermos to keep the old girl reasonably cool. So in the back I've had to take a fair bit of stuff out. My original fuel tank was leaking, and I installed this fuel cell, and when I was running the supercharger over here, you'll see the full high pressure fuel system that I've pulled out, and I've rerouted the lines now. so that I'm just running fuel straight up there to that mechanical fuel pump, running off the cam. I did have a little bit of an incident. I found a bit of a leak in the fuel line up under the car. There's two steel lines that are joined by a rubber line, and they've got those little pressure clamps on them. And I slipped my thumb open on one of the tabs of that little clamp. Nice little cut. Anyway, it's all working good now. I bit the bullet rather than run it without the radiator, since she seemed pretty good. And I had to do a little bit of work on this radiator and the thermos. Again, coming back to standard, I'd taken one of the big fans off because it didn't work out with the supercharger and the pulleys and things like that. So I've put both the big fans back on the fan shroud and run some wires to get them ready for running that Davis Craig unit, which I haven't hooked up yet. I originally had it hooked up here, but here's the individual fan wires, and I'll get that hooked up soon. So I've had it running a couple more times with the coolant in it, so I can get a little bit of a tune in it, and it's getting better. Starts quite nicely. I've nearly got it so it idles, but she's got a fairly lumpy cam in it. But starting to work out fairly good. So I'll give her a fire up for you and let you have a look. I've also done an oil change since I put the last clip in. Drained all the oil out, and I mentioned, I may not have mentioned, but I had a lot of trouble with oil pressure, and to get the pressure in there, I just had to keep adding oil into it. I end up about 8 or 10 litres in there. Thought it was not going to hurt it. Getting up to the level of the oil pump where it could prime it up itself. I'd already filled up the oil filter. I just had to get it high enough that the oil pump would pick up some oil and get rid of that air gap and start sucking it through. And since I've done that, it's been really good. So yeah, had about 10 litres in there. It was a mixture of oils just to get that happening. So I've drained it all out and put a new batch of oil in there just for the run-in process. So we'll fire it up, give you a bit of a listen to her, and we'll see how we go. So there we go, guys. I think we're over a few of the hurdles. Never know in building old cars and playing around. But she fires up quite nicely, runs quite nicely. I've obviously got it running straight out the extractors. So I've got to modify the exhaust because this set of extractors has a flange on it and won't mount up to the other exhaust I had in there. I'm going to use that exhaust, but I've just got to change the way it attaches to these extractors. I've got to hook up the drive shaft, and I've got to put some oil in the gearbox. So a few little things to do before she moves on her own steam, but I'm pretty happy with the way the engine's running at this stage. I'm only running single springs in it at the moment, not double springs, just to run that cam in. And as I get the engine running, I'll pull the rocker cover off and throw the double springs back in it and give it a little bit of compression on there to keep those valves from bouncing. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Keep coming back. If you haven't hit subscribe, hit that like button. Really appreciate it. Take care and bye for now.